Welcome to the State Federal Year 27 Bullying Prevention Notice of Funding Opportunity Technical Assistance session. Today, we will go over key details about this funding opportunity, including eligibility requirements, important dates, the application process, and tips to help you submit a strong proposal. Our goal is to make sure applicants understand what's expected, how to navigate the application system, and what the reviewers will be looking for. We'll also cover some common mistakes to avoid and share resources available through ICEJA to support you during this process. Before applying, there are several important steps each organization must complete to be eligible for funding. First, obtain a unique entity ID number through SAMS.gov. This replaces the old DUNS number, and it's required for all applicants. Next, register with the System for Award Management. Make sure your registration is active and up to date. This can take some time to process, so don't wait until the last minute. Next, apply for, update, or verify your employer identification number. This ensures your organization is properly identified for tax and reporting purposes. You will also need to complete registration in the Grantee Data Portal, which is Illinois' system for grant accountability and transparency. Be sure to identify your organization's primary contact and have them obtain a single sign-on account to access and submit the application in Amplifon. Finally, it is critical to maintain good standing with all GATA pre-qualification requirements throughout the entire application process. Falling out of compliance at any point will disqualify your organization from consideration. For this funding opportunity, award amounts will range from $65,000 to $75,000 per grantee. The grant period will begin after October 1st, 2026, or upon execution of the grant agreement and will run through June 30th of 2027. All application materials must be submitted throughout Amplifon. Paper or email submissions will not be accepted. Please note that all materials are due by 5 o'clock on March 12, 2026. Late submissions will not be considered, so plan accordingly and follow and allow the time for uploading and reviewing your material before the deadline. Please take note of the important dates on this slide. When preparing your program narrative, it is important to clearly demonstrate how your organization meets the program requirements. Be specific about the strategies, the activities, and the outcomes you plan to achieve. Pay attention to the number of points assigned to each question. This can help you prioritize your responses and focus on the areas that will carry the most weight in scoring. Have someone else review your application. This isn't just for catching typos. They can help ensure you fully address every part of each question and that your answers are clear and complete. Finally, make sure your responses are detailed and easy to understand. Reviewers should be able to clearly see your plan and the impact your program will have. The equity section of the application includes 2 questions, each worth 5 points. To earn all available points, applicants must provide clear, detailed responses. Simply answering yes or no is not sufficient. You will need to explain your approach, strategies, and any relevant examples. Think about how your program addresses equity, inclusivity, and access for all participants. Make sure your answers fully reflect that. When completing this section, make sure to fill out the appropriate goal or goals for your program. These should align closely with the program's objectives and what you plan to achieve with the funding. You also have the option to add additional goals. If your program has other measurable outcomes that aren't included in this list, please feel free to add them here. Once awarded, grantees will be required to report on these goals quarterly. Reporting is critical. It helps ICEJA track progress and ensure that the program is making its intended impact. The budget section is a critical part of your application and should clearly reflect how your organization plans to use the grant funds. Make sure your budget is realistic, detailed, and aligns with the activities described in your program narrative. Each expense should have a clear purpose and be necessary to achieve your program goals. Check that all categories are completed accurately, including personnel, equipment, supplies, and any other relevant costs. It is also important to follow any specific funding guidelines or limits outlined in the Notice of Funding Opportunity. Budgets that are incomplete or don't align with program activities may impact your score. Finally, remember that once awarded, grantees will have to report on expenditures to ensure funds are spent appropriately. When preparing your budget, the most important thing is that it aligns with your program narrative. Every expense should directly support the activities and goals you've described. All budget items must be allowable, reasonable, and necessary. This means the costs are permitted under the funding guidelines. It has to make sense for the scope of your program. Additionally, every line item in your budget must have a corresponding narrative. It must explain what the expense is for and how it supports your program. This helps the reviewer understand your planning and ensures transparency. A well-prepared budget not only supports your application, but it also keeps your organization on track with managing the funds effectively. When budgeting for personnel, it is important to designate a person responsible for coordinating with ICEJA on grant initiation, monitoring, and reporting. ICEJA recommends allowing at least 0.5 full-time equivalents to ensure these responsibilities are covered. Next, consider what other positions are needed. Also, factor in how much time you will need to hire any new staff. Remember, the performance period for this grant is after October 1st or upon execution of the grant agreement, and it goes through June 30th of 2027. Please make sure your staffing aligns with this timeline. For fringe benefits, list each cost separately, such as FICA, health insurance, retirement, contributions to ensure transparency and clarity for the reviewers. When budgeting for travel, consider local travel expenses such as mileage, parking, and tolls. If your agency doesn't have a lower internal travel rate, then use the state reimbursement rate, which is 70 cents per mile. It is important to include a narrative that details what the travel costs are being used for. For example, explain whether travel is for staff to attend meetings, trainings, or program-related events. Providing this level of detail ensures reviewers understand the necessity of the travel and how it aligns with your program activities. When budgeting for program supplies, think about what items are needed to meet your program objectives. Your narratives must explain why each item is necessary for the program. For office supplies, you can describe them generally with options such as pens, papers, notebook, toner, and other similar items. Keep in mind that no single item under this budget line should cost more than $100 without specific written consent and pre-approval from the authority. If any item exceeds $100 per unit, it must be listed separately in your budget with a detailed explanation in the narrative. Providing clear details ensures reviewers understand the purpose of your supplies and how they support your program success. Food is an allowable expense when it serves as an incentive for attendance and supports a specific programmatic purposely, particularly for youth. Examples of allowable uses are support events, workshops, or training, hosting a block party, holding a social gathering, providing food during focus groups, therapy, or counseling sessions. Cost limits. Maximum $3 per snack or $10 per meal. No alcohol is allowed at any events regardless of the funding source. Be sure to explain in your narrative how food supports the program goals and aligns with these guidelines. In addition to general supplies and food, there are other program specific costs that are allowable. This may include, but not limited to, background checks, uniform, transportation costs, and incentives to encourage participation. Your narrative should clearly explain why these costs are necessary for your program and how they support your goals. When budgeting for subcontractors or subawards, it's important to understand the difference between the two. A subcontractor is typically an entity that provides professional services to a grantee, helping carry out a portion of the project. A subaward or subgrant refers to an entity that the grantee engages to implement part of the program itself. If you are proposing a subaward with a known entity, include the entity's name in your application and budget. If the entity has not yet been identified, please mark to be determined. If awarded, grantees will be required to provide additional documentation for all subcontractors and subawardees, so please plan accordingly. When budgeting for office and program spaces, it is important to separate costs clearly. If your office and program spaces are in different locations, create one line item for the office and a separate line item for each program location. If your program takes place in multiple locations, each location needs its own line. Utilities such as electric, gas, water should not be included in rent. These should be listed separately. If phone and internet are not bundled, they should also have their own line. For prorated costs, list the full monthly cost and then indicate the prorated percentage. Proration is generally based on FTE to reflect how much space or service is used for a program. Clear and detailed budgeting in this area helps reviewers understand how costs are allocated and assures transparency. Indirect costs. Indirect costs are those costs that are not charged directly to the grant. You must have an improved indirect cost rate in GATA, and a narrative must detail what expenses indirect costs will cover. It is critical that applications are submitted on time. Late submissions will not be accepted. All applications will first be screened for completeness, including the verification of GATA pre-qualifications and ICQ submission for the current state fiscal year. Your organization must remain in good standing throughout the application, review, and scoring process. This includes maintaining all required registration, compliance with ICEJA and GATA requirements. Applications that successfully pass these initial steps will then be reviewed by ICEJA staff and the external reviewers. Failure to remain in good standing at any point in the process will result in disqualification. So it is important to monitor and maintain compliance throughout the entire process. For applications reviewed by a team of reviewers, and individual scores are averaged to determine the applicant's final scores. For the main portion of the application, applicants can earn a maximum of 100 points for the program narrative. In addition, the applicant can earn up to 10 bonus points for the responses to the equity questions. It is important to note that applications with an average score below 70 points will not be funded. So completeness, clarity, and alignment with the program goals are critical to maximize your score. All questions submitted about this funding opportunity will be compiled and answered in a question and answer document. The question and answer document will be posted every Friday, so applicants can check weekly for updates and clarifications. Be sure to review the Q&A regularly, as it may contain important guidance that could impact your application. Thank you and good luck with your application.